Greetings, friends. It's Pat back with another episode of Let's Talk Travel. And I am so excited about this particular episode, folks, because we have our own Kevin Gregg on board with us to talk about his recent tour of Japan. He's going to have a wealth of insights and information to share with us. So you'll definitely want to stay tuned throughout this episode. And don't forget, as always, live listeners, you're going to have an opportunity to get your name in that weekly drawing for a special prize. And it's a good one again this week. So you'll want to stay tuned for that as well. It's extremely cool. I have one myself, and it's something that you would probably benefit from having if you travel at all. So stay tuned for that. Now, with that all said, I'm bringing Kevin on. Welcome, Kevin. So excited to have you back with us again. Kevin, first, I always like to start. We never know who's watching, and I'd love for us to start with just giving people a little bit of your background. How long have you been with Dancing Moon now?
I think it's been 40 or 50 years.
Seems like,
Pat, I think it's 12 years, isn't it?
Now, my recollection, I think it's 2010. So it's been a minute.
Yeah. So before I got involved with you, and travel, I guess you'd call me a little bit of an entrepreneur. I was involved in several different ventures, and I had worked in marketing and worked in sales, done a lot of different things. But I stumbled upon Dancing Moon Travel and hooked up, and it's been fun all the way.
Craigslist, it's the best thing that ever happened from Craigslist, I swear. Now, Kevin, I consider you to be very well traveled, and I think your wealth of personal travel experiences lends a lot of credibility to your insights from your trips. So could you just share a handful of the various places that you've visited over the years?
Well, I guess as many of people know, I actually live in Ireland now. So that's one. And I've been over 30 years. I've probably been here many, over 30 times, 40 years, but I've lived here now almost 7 years. In addition to that, I've been to 16 different Western European countries. I've been to 47 states, Mexico, Canada, and then various cruise destinations. I've been to Tunisia and Africa. I've been to United Arab Emirates, Dubai, and then of course I've been to Japan lately. So yeah, I've gotten around.
Wow, you have been around for sure. Now, Kevin, you chose an escorted tour for this particular trip, and we used All Japan Tours as our provider. And from my perspective as a travel advisor, I can say that they did a great job with very quick responses when I had a question, and very timely provision of your travel documents and so forth. But from a client perspective, would you be able to recommend them?
I can. It was, I didn't have a single bit of problem with them at all from the time they met me at the airport till I left. The only thing, this is maybe talking due to my experience leading groups around Ireland, is that one thing that I really enjoy doing is to let my group know in advance a little bit about what to expect in the country that we're traveling through. I also like to introduce ahead of time all the different travelers so that they are aware of have a little bit of knowledge of each other. With All Japan Tours, I didn't know a thing until I arrived at the airport, other than the sent itinerary. Um, and people seem to enjoy when send out things like, here's some of the favorite things to eat in Ireland. Here's what the weather might be like. Here's us. Here's how to pack. All those different types of things. All Japan could step up their game a little bit, in my opinion, if they would provide that to their guests.
Yeah. Now, I think this is very typical of the tour companies. And that's the difference between like booking. If you had a group of people that wanted to book a tour of Japan, booking through us rather than direct with the provider, is that we provide that additional sort of insight and personal connection and things. Most of the tour companies won't give that if you book that direct with them. So, Globus, Cosmos, any of those big tour companies, you're very anonymous until you arrive at the tour that you've designated. So, folks, just a word there, book through us and bring your group along with you, and we can make that a very personalized experience there.
Well, I've led several groups with Dancing Moon Travel, and we've always tried to do that, have a kind of a pre-launch type thing for the group to kind of warm people a bit.
Yeah, kind of connect a little bit beforehand and set expectations and give a little bit of an overview for sure. So with 2020 hindsight, now we all have that. Would you recommend an escorted tour for first-time visitors to Japan?
Definitely recommend an escorted tour of Japan, because the culture, the way you get around the country, the language, everything would be so complex. When I travel around Europe, I can kind of muddle my way through pretty much any of the languages I go through. And most people you're going to find, unless you get out into a very rural area, that they have a sprinkling of English, and you can easily get by and get around. I would have been completely lost in Japan trying to figure it all out on my own.
So that does not surprise me. I really have never recommended anybody traveling to Asia independently unless they at least know some language or have been there previously or have some reason that I would be more comfortable. I really have always expected that people should travel that, and it's good to have you validate that. Tell us, Kevin, I'm interested to find out what was your itinerary for this trip?
Well, that's we could spend a couple of days on that, Pat. It was 8 days, starting off in Tokyo, and went through Kyoto, Osaka. We stopped at Nagasaki, and lots of different places in between. It was just eight days of traveling from one end of Japan to the other, and nice accommodations, nice food. So
excellent. Did you get some good pictures? I know you're quite the photographer, Kevin. Did you get an opportunity to get some images while you were there?
I got a few. I was going through them, and I felt like I didn't really capture as much as like I wanted to. I don't know. I'm disappointed with my production this time, but I'll share a few as we're going along.
Okay, that's great. Any highlights? What would you say are the highlights, that the experiences that kind of came together to make the trip unforgettable? And were there any particular destinations or attractions or activities? What were your memory makers?
I think interacting with the Japanese people was very interesting to me. For example, we went, the group, I say the group, there were 6 of us, but we went to a sushi making presentation where we sat down and the sushi chef sat there and brought out this big fish, I don't know what he called it, and sat there in front of us with this knife that must have been sharper than anything in the world, showed us how you slice that fish open, all the different moves with the knife. And then they brought out bowls of rice and pieces of fish that the chef had cut for us. And they instructed us on how to make our own sushi balls with the rice and wrapping the raw fish around. And so we watched him fillet this fish. We then made our own sushi, and we were awarded a certificate as a master sushi chef after it was over. So,
wow.
So that
way cool.
That was a cool experience. And then and so that was like part of the culture. That was just, it was with the people. Also went to, I have a note here on it and I can't seem to find, it was a green tea ceremony. And that was something that typically was only the social elite would be able to attend. And it was hosted by, and I'll get every Japanese word wrong, but it was hosted by a Maiko, M-A-I-K-O, who is an apprentice geisha. And, but they have this whole ceremony of how you take the little cup of tea and you have some powder and you have a special stirring stick, and they go through each step of how you're to make this tea, how you're to drink it. And what I thought was unique is that when you're finished, to show your host that you're finished, you're to slurp the last. And that is perfect. If you don't do it, you're not following the culture.
So geisha is really, it's still a thing in Japan.
Geisha is an entertainer. Some people, I think, have the feeling or the thought that a geisha is kind of along the lines of like a prostitute or something, but she's not. She's well-read, she's knowledgeable, she's educated, and she's there to entertain a businessman with her stories and her song and things like that. And it's quite a ceremony and it's quite a lifestyle. A geisha cannot marry. They have certain types of wardrobe. They have to live in certain communes, in certain areas. So yeah, it's still a thing.
Wow. And ceremony is very much, and cultural connection is still very, very strong and important in the Japanese culture, I believe.
The respect that people have, the courtesy is unbelievable. I mean, every place you go, the respect you bow to everyone. The deeper you bow, the more respect you have. And it became ingrained in a way so that even when I left, I was thanking someone at the airport and I bowed to them. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't need to do that anymore.
I'm not in Japan anymore. So it's amazing. I really appreciate that. So you touched on this, but tell me a little more about your interactions with the Japanese people. This tour provide a number of opportunities for that interaction?
Yes, and fortunately, our guide was with us most of the time. So there was, because language could have been difficult, but one of the first days, for example, went through an old fish market. Excuse me, where it's not just fish, but all sorts of sundries and vegetables and nuts and berries and things I couldn't recognize. Probably no one spoke English in those little cute kiosks where they were selling those things. You point, and you get your message across, and they will help you count out the money. But we had a lot of interaction with the Japanese people, and I just found all of them to be charming, until when we checked into our major hotels. Typically, then your hostess there and who's checking you in and all that. Of course, right. They know English, but in your everyday normal interactions, probably not so much.
Okay. Good to know. Hence the escorted tour, folks. Yeah. And we, as I said, we have all Japan tours we worked with on this tour. We have many tour providers for Japan, destination specialists right there on the ground in Japan that we can work with to customize. If you want private touring, we can arrange that. But or small group like Kevin, I mean, 6 people, that's almost a private tour, for goodness sake.
Well, it was supposed to be up to 18, and they didn't sell it out. So yeah. We were fortunate.
That is lovely. Now, Kevin, what about the food? You've kind of touched on some of it. I realize that the Japanese, their traditional diet is very, very different from how we eat as Westerners. Did you primarily eat local fare? Did you eat Western? Tell us a bit more about that. And did you eat anything outside your comfort zone while you were there?
Every day I ate something outside my comfort zone. Provided with a lot of traditional Japanese cuisine throughout the entire trip. I finally got my head around thinking, how many millions of Asians eat this? It must be okay. And so there was only a couple of times I tried something where it's like, I wish I hadn't tried that. But for the most part, I didn't know what I was eating. There was always rice involved. There was always lots of different types of fish. Some of it cooked, some of it not cooked. A couple of the meals, they had what they called hot pots that they put out on the table, and you cooked your own vegetables and meal inside in the hot pot that was heated by a candle. And then some of us would put the raw meat into the hot pot too, to help with that. One thing I could not do, and I was really the only one that couldn't, I never could master chopsticks. Never could. And so the host, our guide pretty much knew every time we went any place, she said, he needs a Western style fork. That
would be problems for me too. I confess.
I couldn't do it. I would have had to change shirts 2 or 3 times a day just because of dropping all the food on me. And no, that was tough. But I can't think of anything specific on the meals because I didn't know what I don't know what it was sometimes. But it was all very tasty and good. I didn't have any complaints. When I had an opportunity to have my own meal, there were places you could find that had a Western style uh, meal, mostly in the hotels. And so I would jump on that uh, and have that. But
Not quite the same as an Irish breakfast, right?
no, 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 it wasn't. No.
Kevin, you have some amazing images here. Why don't we just take a minute here and for you to just kind of go through some of these images and give us just a quick overview of each. I'm trying to be mindful of the time here,
Yeah.
but I want our viewers to get to see these amazing images that you brought us.
Okay. Well, there's a picture of some of our food one day, and so if you can identify anything on that plate, you win a prize. Uh, and I've been there and I've ate that, and I don't know what it is. So I think the one up there that looks fried, that's with the rice, that's fried prawns. Um,
Okay.
but that's about it.
That I recognize because I get the tempura, the shrimp tempura sometimes, and that's what it looks like.
Yep. Uh, this, and I went to 3 different UNESCO heritage sites in Japan. This is one of them. It's a, and I'm going to butcher it. It's Tsukashima Shrine, and it's out in the. It's just part of a complex, but the actual shrine is out in the middle of the water, and there's times it kind of looks like it's floating. But that was a cool place to go. This one, I don't even remember where it is, but I just love the ornate design of that. That's a roof that is gold plated and things, and that was amazing.
Just stunning.
One of my challenges here is in front of you here now. Is the Kotoshirgu Shinto Shrine. And to get to the shrine, it's about a third of a mile, but it's a third of a mile up 785 stairs. I made it that far and
but could you walk the next day?
Yeah. So it's 785 steps up and 785 steps down. And this is, then you see the shrine there at the top. Now, there were 2 people out of the 6 that only stopped a brief while at this shrine and continued on up to the top of Mount Zozu, I think it was called, which was 1,368 steps. It was a horribly humid, hot day, and I had to stop. 2 people made it. They came back, and they were absolutely, totally drenched with sweat, and they were exhausted for the rest of the day because of the heat.
Just wipe them out. I can imagine. I know it would me. I would be looking up at the stairs still today if I had to climb all that.
I went to a beautiful garden. Now, they call it a Japanese garden, but what else would you call it in Japan? It's Retsuren Park. It's one of the largest gardens in Japan. It dates back 100 years, which in Japan is nothing, but it was a beautiful, beautiful park just to stroll around. It's the biggest park in Japan to just stroll around and look at all the trees and the gardens, and it was stunning to look at. Here's a picture of, on the left is the that's the great Buddha of Nara. It's sometimes called the Kaza, but it's hard to tell by the photo, but it's actually absolutely huge. It's a big uh,
Big sculpture. Wow.
Sculpture of Buddha. And then on the other side is outside of Kyoto, and it's the I actually wrote this one out so I'd pronounce it right, and I can't find it now. The Kyozmu Temple. I don't even know why I'm trying, but
yeah, beautiful temple.
It's a beautiful, and built out from the temple is this stage that is 45 feet high, built all on wooden timbers, and those wooden timbers, not a single nail was used to build those things, and it has stood for many years. Then here's just another traditional couple of pictures of things that's you traditionally think of in Japan. Now, one of the places we went to, and I'm pretty sure it was back at the shrine that was behind this wooden structure. It's another UNESCO site that called the Niho Castle. And what was interesting was the floors were designed that when you walk on them, and everyone has to remove your shoes, but when you walk on them, you kept hearing chirping like crickets or locusts or something. Well, they had designed something in the floorboards that when you walk on them, they rub somehow that makes this chirping noise so that you could never sneak up on the shogun or the people that were inside the temple.
Wow. Amazing.
And I don't have any pictures of it, but we went to the Peace Memorial Park and the Atomic Bomb Museum in Hiroshima. And I didn't take any pictures because it's mostly memorials, but it was very well done. Nothing was aimed at the U.S. for doing what happened in World War II. Everything was aimed at atomic bombs, that how harmful, and there was all these things you can do for more, to ring a bell for more peace, and to do all these types of things. And it was, I actually could not walk through the museum. I walked through it at a fast pace and went in one end and out the other, because it was, if you've ever been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., you leave with the same feeling when you left the Atomic Bomb Museum in Hiroshima. The images and the visuals and the stories about people were just a little bit,
just kind of more than you could stand to take.
It was too overwhelming for me. Yeah. So that's some very quick run through of things.
Amazing. What surprised you the most, Kevin? What any sources of delight or just unexpected things?
Well, a fun thing was that 2 different restaurants, we were served by robots. You would, on your table, you had like an iPad type thing where you would place your order. And then pretty soon a little robot would come over to your table with your food on trays. You took the food off the tray, pushed a button, the robot left. So they delivered your food with robots. That was kind of cool. And then the fun thing, uh, every toilet in every hotel we stayed in had heated seats. So, and one of them, when you walked into the toilet, into the laboratory, the toilet lid rises up. I got
Oh,
such a shock. I walked in there and the thing starts, and I'm jumping back. What's going on in here? So it was some sort of a motion detector that the lid raised and lowered based on the motion of you walking into the toilet.
that is hilarious, hilarious. Now, Kevin, everything I would say, pretty much everything I've ever done, somewhere there's a downside. What would you say was the biggest negative of your trip? But anything that you'd say, eh?
Well, there's thousands and thousands of shrines and temples in Japan. Uh, it's kind of like churches and cathedrals in Europe. They look cool when you first go in them. You look at all this majestic carvings and all that. But after you've seen a few, it seems like, okay, I've seen that. Let's go see something else. We stopped at a lot of shrines and temples that there were some amazing stories, and some of the things that we were taught on how to bow properly and how to do everything that was correct culturally. It's kind of like, okay, let's move on. The second part, and this can't be helped if you want to see as many things as I wanted to see, was there was a lot of van time. Sometimes 2, sometimes 3 hours to get to a destination. One day we were in the van for nearly 2 hours to go to a place that we went on a river raft ride. The river raft ride round trip was about 35, 40 minutes, and it took us 2 hours to get there. Well, it was a cool trip, and I got some great pictures from it, but I could have passed on that. And then the other real disappointment was a monsoon came through. A cyclone came through on the day that we were to visit Mount Fuji, and so was not able to see Mount Fuji. It was all encased in clouds.
I hate the weather factor. That's the one thing you never can control. And we've talked about this with our trips that we plan. That's the one thing we just can't do anything about, but you always feel a little bit bad. You do feel bad about it, but yeah, that happens. If you had to give your tour a grade, you had to give it a letter grade, what would you give it?
Well, if 10 was high, I'd give it 8.5.
Okay. Very, very good. So all in all, a good experience overall.
Great experience. I'd do it again, but I would it would be nice to have maybe a shorter itinerary to be able to spend more time at some places and less time at others. But again, that's part of of a tour. You're going to go to some places that you don't have any interest in, but 4 other people love it. But I wouldn't have seen anything at all if I had not participated in a tour.
Yeah. If you had stayed home, you wouldn't have had any of that experience. For sure, people get it. Kevin, thank you so much for sharing with us, and to our viewers. We thank you. And if you're watching on a replay, we appreciate your being there, but we have something special, as always, for our live listeners only. And tonight, I am giving away this travel wallet. It's a passport wallet. It's cool. Kevin, I know you're lusting after one of these yourself. You've asked me to tell you about that. I have one. I actually have two. And I used one of them on our recent cruise. It was so cool because it had a place to put our passports, our boarding passes, everything. I could even clip my car keys right in the center for that. It has a place for that. Credit cards, it has the whatever they call it, the protection, the RFID protection on that, so your credit cards are safe on that. So it is a handy dandy thing for you international travelers to have with you. And I want you to enter the words in the comment section, only for live listeners, Tour Japan, 2 words, Tour Japan in the comments right now, if you want to be entered in this evening's drawing for this great passport wallet for you travelers out there. Kevin, thank you again. We so appreciate your sharing with us. I know that I have a renewed interest in getting to Japan now, and your pictures are amazing.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody. Tune in again next week. We'll have another episode of Let's Talk Travel. Night, everybody.